On today's episode of the Regression to the Mean podcast, we have 4 players to trade away before the start of NFL training camp. My name is Sean Moran, and I am joined by my co-host, good friend, and fellow knower of ball, Aidan Haller. Aidan, how we doing today, man?
I'm doing fantastic, Sean. I'm ready for football. We are less than a week away from training camp, about 2 weeks away from the Hall of Fame game. So football is here, man. The
It's
time is
here.
now to really lock back in. If you haven't locked back in yet, now's the time, as it's gonna get real pretty fast. Like redrafts gonna be starting, next couple of weeks if you do draft kind of earlier in August. So things are gonna get real pretty quickly here.
It's going to get real for our family members who are not going to see
Yep.
us for the next 6 months. And yeah, rookies have already reported to training camp. Veterans report either this weekend or next week. And times are about to get wild. We're going to see Twitter explode with beat writer reports, depth chart updates, and of course, guys making plays in shorts. Right? That's everybody's
Keegan's
Twitter
favorite, man.
season.
I wish he was here. Keegan's
So
favorite.
so we want to get you guys ahead of the game. We want the mean team to be one step ahead of these reports, and we want to give you 4 guys to get off of before the start of NFL training camp, or even just right at the beginning of NFL training camp when maybe their value might be the highest. So we're going to kick things off here with a player that I love, and I'm going to battle you a bit on. But Aiden, tell us why you're selling Jayden Reed, the wide receiver one last year for the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, so this is a guy that I like kind of go back and forth on. But pretty much my overall reason I'm selling right now is I don't see a time where his value is ever going to be this high again. So Jayden
Mm.
Reed right now is the wide receiver 31 in keep trade cut. He's the two wide receivers ahead of him, Jordan Addison and Xavier Worthy. I'd still rather have him over those two. Then he's got Rashee Rice and Devontae behind him. Um, so I think his price is actually pretty baked into in terms of what he's done. Still just 24 years old, coming off a wide receiver 25 in his rookie season. Really flashed in Matt LaFleur's offense. Him and Jordan Love, great connection there. Again, like my biggest argument though is I find it hard to believe his value is ever going to be this high again. Just looking at this Packers offense, I really find it hard to believe that we're going to have like one bona fide alpha. It's just hard for me to believe that. You've got Christian Watson coming back. Who knows? Maybe he finally fixes hamstring injuries. I'm going to get into Dontavian Wicks in a minute here, and then you've got Romeo Dobbs as well. So it's pretty crowded. Add in the tight ends there, plus Josh Jacobs, and there's a ton of mouths to feed here. Looking at Jayden Reed too, he plays 76% of his snaps last year in the slot. Kind of indicating in two wide receiver sets, there's a good chance he may not be on the field a lot of times, which is definitely a knock on his value. You would assume it's going to be some combination of Watson, Wicks, and Dobbs as your true X and Z wide receivers in that offense. With
Romeo
Reed,
Dobbs erasure will not be allowed, sir. He's always on the field.
I know
He's
Dobbs,
the one who makes this confusing because
Dobbs,
talent wise, I don't know, but he's
yeah,
always on the
it's
field.
so just looking at Jayden Reed. I think one of the biggest things too, why I see some regression and just overall like why I'm okay selling is touchdown regression. He scored
Yeah,
on just over seven, like every 7 touches he was scoring touchdowns. Like you look at a guy that he's comped to, Debo Samuel, who's notorious for high touchdown rate. His career touches per touchdown rate is actually right around 7.5, but he was closer to 12 last year. So it's like, who knows? Maybe Jayden Reed is a highly efficient touchdown guy over his career. Very similar skill set to Debo. But like there's going to be highs and lows. Like I find it hard to believe that he's going to be scoring every 7 touches.
no,
And then Dontavian
no,
Wicks is the
probably not.
one, like, I think Dontavian Wicks is the best wide receiver in this offense. You look at, like, kind of some of the key metrics between Jayden Reed and Wicks, and, Wicks is as good or better in a lot of kind of key areas that you want. Their ADOT's pretty similar last year, both just over 10 yards per route run. Wicks has them at 2.31 compared to 2.23. So both pretty high numbers, especially for, two rookies in the NFL. Yards after catch per reception, Wicks has them a bit by just about zero point 0.2, 5.69 versus 5.48. I know Jayden Reed is, absolutely electric with the ball in his hands. And then you've got Dobbs. Dobbs is kind of the constant there that
It's always
makes
there.
things a bit annoying. More routes, more air yards. He's the red zone target there. More red zone targets than anyone in that offense. And then tied Jayden Reed for receiving touchdowns. And then you've got Christian Watson. So I know this is the guy that I was like, I'd love if he just like was eliminated from the offense entirely. because I think things make a ton of sense with Wicks, Dobbs, and Reed. Like everyone has a clear cut role. Sure, we don't have like the downfield, take the top off the defense burner, but I'd love Christian Watson just kind of, moseyed his way out of that offense. So we'll see. It's like Jayden Reed had an awesome year. I know you're going to get into the argument because you love Jayden Reed, but I think
I do.
there's just so many mouths to feed, lot of young talent in this offense. And quite frankly, we just don't know how it's going to shake out. Looking at what you could get back for him, you're probably looking at, a mid to late first. If you could, probably more of a late round first for Jayden Reed, or some guys in the general range that he is too, is like Bryce Young. You could go get Debo, Devontae, even a guy like Trey Benson. So, if you were going for one, there's a lot of guys in that range that I like. So my argument is just kind of get out ahead of it. We're going to learn more in training camp, what personnel sets are going to look like this upcoming season and kind of how much we can anticipate him to be on the field. But I'm kind of just banking on that offense being a bit too crowded for my liking, and that value at 31 kind of never being as high as it is.
Yeah, there's a lot of ambiguity in that offense because there's
Yeah.
4 wide receivers. They run a ton of 3 wide receiver sets, and then they also have 2 good tight ends. So, they could run 2 tight end sets too. It's hilarious because Romeo Dobbs is probably the 4th best out of those 4, but he's going to get the most snaps because I think
He's so
LaFleur trusts him
consistent.
the most. Yeah, I think LaFleur trusts him the most. And he was awesome in the playoffs last year. So that's that doesn't matter necessarily for fantasy, but it's indicative of like when push comes to shove, who are they throwing the ball to in the biggest moments? It was Romeo Dobbs.
Yeah.
Christian Watson was the wide receiver 1 in terms of usage when he was healthy. Target percentage, air yards, all the underlying stuff suggested Watson was the guy. However, I'm a big fan of Matt Harmon and reception perception. And I was very intrigued to see Jayden Reed's data come out. And it was way better than Dontavian Wicks's, and it was way better than Watson. Harmon is not a big Watson guy. He does not think he's a nuanced separator or route runner.
I'm not a big Watson guy.
I just love the big plays. But yeah, in terms of Jayden Reed was 71st percentile versus man, 77th percentile versus zone, and 82nd percentile versus press man. I wouldn't have thought him off the line of scrimmage against press man coverage he was that good.
For a smaller guy, that's pretty surprising. Like that's
Yeah,
especially in your rookie year, like he's probably going
yeah.
to beef up a little bit too and get stronger with a full NFL offseason under his belt.
Dude, he feasted on slants, posts, and digs. So he was excellent over the middle of the field. That's where you score fantasy points, right? You catch the ball over the middle of the field, you break a couple tackles, you score fantasy points. His snap percentage wasn't great. It was like 56, 57%. And he was buoyed by big plays. But he was an efficient player. I forgot his snap percentage. I don't think he played that much against the 49ers. I'd have to look at it, but I remember thinking, like, where's Jayden Reed?
To your
He's
point,
super
too,
talented.
Like he didn't really become like a full time, or like not even a full time player, but like he wasn't really involved, until a quarter halfway into the season until Jayden Reed was really, a key, like cog in that offense.
My only thing though is like I think he's an ultra talented player, and I think it'd be crazy if he wasn't one of the top 2 options. But at the same time, LaFleur's known for being stubborn with the scheme, man. He was in Tennessee and gave Dion Lewis like 200 touches with the big dog, Derrick Henry in the backfield. He would give touches to AJ Dillon at the expense of Aaron Jones. So he can be pretty stubborn with his roles. However, I just think Jayden Reed's a good player, and he's probably the best out of those 4. So I would buy Jayden Reed if you set the trade offer to me, but I get it. There's a lot of ambiguity there, and if you want to cash in on a really good rookie season that was buoyed by touchdown production, I wouldn't blame you. I really wouldn't. I just think he's a good player. I want in on him.
Especially if you got like wide receiver depth. Like I think this really comes down to like what does your wide receiver room look like? If if Jayden Reed's your wide receiver 4 or 5 right now, like go upgrade another position, go upgrade your quarterback, go upgrade something else. But
Yeah.
if he's probably like your top 3 wide receivers, it's you probably got to think a little bit harder and really get something worthwhile. But I think the ambiguity is the biggest thing, and we're going to learn a lot in training camp. The next couple of weeks I think are going to be pretty telling. If Christian Watson survives training camp and all 4 of these guys make it to week 1, who's to say, who's going to lead that offense? It's just a big question mark for sure.
Before we get on to our next player, two things. One, if you are part of the 70% of people that are watching this channel but aren't yet subscribed, you know what to do. Hit the subscribe button, like this video, and you make sure you turn on the notifications so you don't miss any of the content that we are dropping weekly on this channel. And two, we love to hear from you, the Mean Team. This next player I'm going to sell, would love your opinion on him. If you think Jayden Reed's a keeper, disagree with Aidan, chop it up in the comments. We appreciate you as always. All right, moving on to our next guy here. He's the tight end 5 in Dynasty, and that is none other than Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts is ranked ahead of good NFL players like Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce, George Kittle, Evan Ingram, and David Njoku. In terms of where he ranks amongst the tight ends, I think it's pretty fair. You could argue that he could be ahead of Bowers and Kincaid. You could make the argument that he should be behind Andrews and Kelce. I wouldn't twist your arm either way. But that's not really the question I'm looking to ask today. I'm not trying to ask where should Kyle Pitts be ranked. The question I'm looking to ask is, are we sure Kyle Pitts is good? Right? That's the question I'm trying to solve for today. And because I know Mark Andrews is good. I know Travis Kelce is great. George Kittle, Evan Ingram, David Njoku. Those guys are all good. I've seen it. But Kyle Pitts, he was good in 2021. That was 3 years ago. Aidan, who else are you holding on to and banking on this year in 2024 based on their 2021 production? Who on your team are you just, yep, based on what he did in 2021, that's what I'm hoping for. Who else are you doing that with?
It's a lot of hope with Kyle. Like, you're going to get into it, but it's a lot of hope. Like, we're really hoping what's inside the box is, better than the boat, because it's just a lot of hope right now.
No, I get it. You can hand wave away the last 2 years because of injuries.
Sure.
Arthur Smith,
bad QB play,
Desmond Ridder, Marcus Mariota, etc. Shaun, he had 1,000 yards. He only scored 1 TD though, so that was a pretty mid season in terms of PPR production for a 1,000-yard receiver.
Yeah.
The case against Pitts, in my opinion, is pretty cut and dry. One, his new OC shared that he's basically learning 2 new positions. What the fuck has he been doing for 3 years? He's learning tight end and receiver. Hasn't he been doing that? It's year 3. Why are we learning positions, Aidan?
Year 4. Year 4.
That's not good. Yeah, it's year 4. Like, what?
Yeah, okay. I don't know.
He's got a high ADOT. That's great, but where are the layup targets? I want my Sam Laporta in the flat layup targets where I catch a 3-yard pass and break a tackle for 10 yards. I want that.
I want those are Jonnu Smith screens from last year. Like I want the easy stuff with Kyle, because we know he can get downfield, especially to your point. Like, I know we talked about, like, ideally he's playing like in the slot. If he's out wide, this is a disaster.
Big slot receiver. Yes. Okay.
And then you mentioned he's playing out wide.
And you mentioned where are the screens. Well, what if he's not good with the ball in his hands? Even in his best year in 2021, he failed to finish top 10 in missed tackles forced per reception, which is fine. Like, Trey McBride didn't break a ton of tackles last year. Not everyone's going to be George Kittle. Like, that's not in everyone's bag. But, like, he's not breaking tackles. He's mostly used downfield as a vertical threat. And now he's learning multiple positions when he should have been learning those positions. Like, I just think the only path of success at this point for Kyle Pitts is the Jimmy Graham route, where you put him in the slot, you move him off the line of scrimmage, he matches up against linebackers and safeties, right? I think that's kind of the path to success, and I think he could be really good at that. It's like a stream steam. Oh my God, what the fuck? Seam stretching tight end. There it is.
There we go.
I just think that's his path to success. And if they're going to, like you said, if they put him out at X against corners, I'm out. We've seen that. Not great.
So out.
I'm out.
He's not explosive enough. Like, he's not explosive enough to get open, but against a linebacker or, a strong safety, now we're talking. Or even like a little nickel corner, like, a little 5'10" guy. And like now we're talking.
And I get it. In the high ADOT role, it pays to have a good quarterback. So I do think he will benefit. Like, naturally, his efficiency should go up. Because when you're basically a downfield threat with a quarterback who can't throw downfield, it's a disaster for fantasy, right? So I just don't think that I don't think Arthur Smith had a bad read on what Kyle Pitts can do as a player. I just don't think they had a quarterback capable of getting him the ball. So, like, I think maybe we're overrating Kyle Pitts, and I think we might be overrating the OC change a little bit. But we'll see. Like Zach Robinson could put him in the slot, and he has like a Cooper Cup type like target share. That's, I guess, in the range of outcomes. I think for their offense, if you put Drake London in the slot, they'd probably be better. But I mean, that's just my opinion. I don't know, man. Pitts really seems like he's profiling as a guy that's a classic year 5 breakout, right? You like David
The
Njoku
Evan
broke out in
Ingram
his 5th
treatment.
year.
Yeah.
Evan Ingram, Vernon Davis, like he just is totally profiling. And if he's learning 2 new positions, how the fuck is he supposed to break out again? Like dude, I don't know, man. I think we're so sure that Kyle Pitts is good because of what he did in 2021. But again, in 2021, he just was kind of a volume merchant in a bad offense, scored 1 touchdown, and had like decent quarterback play. I think that there's little target competition on the Falcons this year outside of Bijan and Drake London. He should hit home at tight end 6, like in redraft. But man, in Dynasty, I think this is something where if it comes out in training camp, like Kyle Pitts looks so good, he's going to have such a monster year. Man, I'd feel tempted to sell if the training camp reports are really good, because you could just sunk cost fallacy. Everyone that's out there that's
For
held him,
sure.
it does not mean you have to continue holding him. You don't have to hold him to 0. You don't have to hold him to 100. This could be a perfect time to get out. And then if he stinks this year, go buy him because he's going to be good in year 5. Like that's honestly how I'd approach Pitts. But I don't
Yeah.
know. What are your thoughts on Pitts?
Yeah. I think to your point, like we as a fantasy community, just like we want it to happen so bad with
I
Kyle
do
Pitts
too.
that
I
like,
want it to
and
happen. It would be
like I
sick
want
if Kyle Pitts is good.
it'd be
I'd be
so
so
cool if Kyle
down.
Pitts is good. Like, and I think there's a lot to like I was just looking, he's caught under 60% of his targets. Like the QB play has been the amount of uncatchable targets that like get thrown to him on a weekly basis is like pretty heinous. I think Kirk
Hot take though.
ab
Can he play in a role where he gets catchable targets? I think like it's a
we'll see.
two-sided thing where the QB play was terrible, but if you watch the role he's playing, it's like he's just the downfield guy, which is cool,
Yeah.
but like come
No,
on,
we
that's
need a
really hard
full
to hit
like we
home.
need a bit more robust route tree from Kyle Pitts. I think I'm kind of with you. If I'd never drafted Kyle Pitts in any of my dynasty leagues, like, it would be pretty hard for me to sell. Just given it's like finally, like you feel like it's finally gonna happen. But at the same time, this could be like your best time to get out from him, in terms of the value that you're gonna get. You mentioned the guys ahead of him. Like I just don't see him leap. He's not gonna leapfrog Laporta. He's not gonna leapfrog McBride. I think he could leapfrog Kincaid. I know we're pretty lukewarm on
Mixed.
Kincaid.
Yeah.
And then Bowers, rookie, I don't know. That's probably going to take 2 years sample before I can like really give you an answer on that one. But I don't know, man. You can get like a mid first, late first for Kyle Pitts. Depending on like
Or,
what your league scoring is, it's like I
or
typically don't really
imagine
build my dynasty rosters around tight ends, especially if I'm not in a tight end premium league. Um, but it's like it would suck to trade Kyle Pitts and then it finally comes together and we get a tight end 1 season from him, because I do think it's like pretty firmly in the realm of possibilities with him. So
it's
I
risky.
it's risky
It's
for sure,
risky.
but that's dynasty. It's like, you kind of just banking on the Kyle Pitts show just not happening. And like with the injury and stuff, like maybe he's never as explosive again. Like I don't know, or maybe you just don't know
Look,
again. It's
Kyle
another
Pitts
question.
could Kyle Pitts, you know what? He could even be George Kittle, or why don't you just go get fucking George Kittle? Like, I mean, who could be a screaming buy if Brandon Ayuk somehow gets traded, right? So like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I get it. He's still young. He's 23, but he just seems like a classic year 5 breakout. This is year 4. Moving on to our next guy here. He future Hall of Famer, right? I'd say that's
For
pretty
sure.
locked
Oh,
in.
yeah, for sure.
One of the
Yeah,
most
yeah, yeah.
productive receivers of this generation. He's moving teams to a quarterback that we all love. We're
Love,
big fans
love.
of. So this one's interesting. Tell us why you're selling Stefon Diggs, who I think is, let me check. He is the wide
Yes.
receiver 43 right now in Dynasty. Why are
43.
you out on Stefon Diggs?
Yeah. First, it'd be a disservice if we don't talk about the Houston Texans. It's, this is top 3, top 5 offense. Like, we're going to be talking about the Houston Texans all season. So, if you like the Texans, hang around because we're going to be talking about them quite a bit. This is a similar argument to Jayden Reed. A bit different, but similar in terms of like there's just way too many cooks in this kitchen. And I don't think Stefon Diggs is the same guy he used to be. Just looking at him, you mentioned he's wide receiver 43 on Keep Trade Cut. You got Ricky Pearsall, Chris Godwin, Xavier Legette, and Deontay Johnson around him. So, I'm probably still favoring him over like all those guys. Maybe dip into Deontay Johnson. I know me and you like DJ, not as much Keegan.
Love DJ.
But looking at Stefon, it's like, okay, he just came off a wide receiver 9 finish, which crazy enough was actually his worst finish in Buffalo. 1,200 yards, 8 touchdowns, like uber productive still. Felt like there was a lot of meat left on that bone in terms of, things he left on the field last season. But the main difference is like he was the clear-cut alpha in Buffalo, like absolute target hog. You could assume, 5 to 10 targets weekly, every single week. Like there was no other person even close to his skill set in Buffalo, which was awesome for fantasy. But now you're looking at it, he's turning 31 this November. You've got Nico Collins, who just came off a top 10 season. That's the alpha in that offense. And then at this point, it's like, is Stefon even going to be better than Tank Dell? Tank Dell was extremely efficient, absolute stud, great rapport with CJ Stroud already. So I think on a weekly basis, you're looking at Stefon Diggs being the second, third, potentially even like fourth option, Dalton Schultz in there. So the volume is going to decrease significantly. I don't think he's, athletic and talented enough to get by on low volume. Like the ADOT and the deep threat with Stefon Diggs, I think is, kind of behind us to a degree. So I just have trouble talking myself in to wanting Stefon Diggs on my roster. I think it's just a tough sell for me. And you're saying, sure, it's wide receiver 43. Like you're not getting a whole lot of value there, but we're looking at a world where he's potentially, watch your 50, 60, 70 by the end of this NFL season. Like I think we're going to go into training camp and it's going to be like very clear, Nico alpha in this offense. In a perfect world, Tank Dell, ahead of schedule, looking good. And then it's Stefon Diggs is kind of just in the mix there. And I know CJ Stroud's been totally advocating, we've got a 5-headed offense, everyone's going to eat. Good chance he passes for, another 4,000, 4,500, even he could pass upwards of 5,000 yards, which means, there's going to be a lot of fantasy producers, but man, it's just hard for me. I think the days of Stefon Diggs being like a truly elite fantasy option are, pretty much behind us, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that. I think really the only way the Diggs hits home, like in terms of really, really producing, is if they stick him in the slot, right? And he's like kind of in his Keenan Allen era, because his success rates really dropped against man, press, and zone interception perception. And, Matt Harmon, who's like his biggest fan, was like, there were some signs of decline with Diggs. He was still a really good player, but he was not the Stefon Diggs of old. In particular, where you saw it was downfield. He was bad downfield. And which is great because Nico Collins and Tank Dell really good downfield. So it's like really good complementary offense now. They all fit together. I honestly think Diggs has been a sell the second he dropped that pass from Josh. How the fuck did he drop that pass in the playoff? I've literally not hated a player more. I've not hated a player more that wasn't playing the Niners than in that moment where I'm like, dude, I've seen you scream at Josh Allen for like 2 years in the playoffs and you can't come home with that. Remember he gets up and he was like, I was like, bro, that was in your hands. What are you talking about?
Yeah, that was when you absolutely like have to get.
Gotta bring home. Gotta bring home. I feel like he's wide receiver 43, so I don't know. Like that's a pretty good price in my opinion. Like, so if you were a contender, I don't hate going out and trading for CJ Stroud, honestly. But
you mean Stefon Diggs?
I mean, sorry, yeah. I don't hate going out and trading. I got CJ Stroud on the brain. I don't hate going out and trading for Stefon Diggs. I mean, CJ Stroud might be a sell as the QB3, but I'm not brave enough to do it. I'm not brave enough to do it.
I'm not,
I can't. I'm not fading CJ Stroud. Way too electric, in my opinion. But
I think maybe like the best route to offloading Stefon is you hope he comes out of the gates like absolutely blazing. Gets back into like
been doing it.
He does. He always falls off at the end of the year once it gets cold, like Stefon Diggs disappears. Ideally, he comes out of the gates blazing. Maybe Tank Dell, wouldn't say complications, like isn't fully ready to go like full speed early on. Creeps his way back into the wide receiver 30s, maybe even high, like low 30s. And at that point, you offload him. But I think I'm maybe just getting ahead of it because there is a world where they're all healthy and, he kind of just gets lost in the mix. We're talking sub 5 targets every week with, kind of his kind of shorter route tree these days could be pretty brutal.
And you could sell him because a contending team could be like, I want Diggs. Like, this is perfect. This is my wide receiver 4 or 5. And maybe they're like willing to, pay up. Maybe a second round pick, first round pick. Maybe you like, I feel like you could get a lot if he comes out and plays well. For sure. Training camp, I wouldn't be shocked to get reports that he's the one, not Nico, right? So we'll see.
I'd be shocked, but we'll see.
I'm a Nico guy.
We are huge Nico guys.
You know that. He's definitely one to monitor. I think he's a hold for me, but I could see why you want to sell him.
That's fair.
Moving on to our last guy here, truly one of the most overrated players in the NFL. Like, come on. What has T. Higgins done in his career to justify a wide receiver 24 dynasty rank? Outside of the Super Bowl, he went off in the Super Bowl. I'm going to give T. Higgins credit there. But what has T. Higgins won for fantasy managers? Have in the comments below, have you won a fantasy ship with T. Higgins on your squad? Like, what has he done for you? That's my question. I feel like I'm stumping, like I'm a politician. Like, what has he done? Has your life been better? Has your life been better since T. Higgins has been in office? Like, okay,
it's another Kyle Pitts thing, like where we just like want it to happen. It's just like
T. Higgins has at least done some stuff in the NFL. But yeah, you're right. It's always the theory of T. Higgins is always.
If you look at the production too, like he has only been wide receiver 24, or he's been better than wide receiver 24 once.
Yep, wide receiver 18. Once. He put up a 75 catch, 1,042 season, 1,042 yard season, and a 7 touchdown season. So it was 75, 1042, 7 slash line. In 2023, though, he was not that good. He had the 41st best role in terms of usage, and he finished as the wide receiver 42 in production. Now you can write off last year, right? Last year, even Chase wasn't as very good.
Yeah.
You have Burrow, who stunk before he had the issue with his wrist. The season was kind of a mess. T. Higgins was banged up per usual. And he had a downer of a 2023 in terms of reception perception too. He was banged up, but he struggled to create separation. 50th percentile versus man, 19th percentile versus zone, 57th percentile versus press. So like in 2023, he had a rough year. Now this year he's playing on the franchise tag. He's been trying to get a long-term contract for now 2 years from the Bengals, and the Bengals have said, we're not going to give it to you. So I think there's a very real possibility he's going to be incredibly motivated. This offense rebounds and T. Higgins plays well and I look dumb. Or there's a very real possibility this offense is kind of middling. He gets banged up like he always does because he misses 2 to 4 games pretty much every single year. He's had a bulky hamstring his entire career. Maybe he feels a tightness in his hamstring and he shuts it down. Like he starts out good, shuts it down because he wants a contract for next year. That's a very real possibility too. I look and see where he's currently ranked, and he's ranked ahead of Deebo Samuel, Jayden Reed, Rashee Rice, Mike Evans, Devontae Adams. You could say, hey, Jayden Reed, Rashee Rice, he deserves to be in front of him, sure. But Deebo Samuel, Mike Evans, Devontae Adams, get the fuck out of here. Come on. Like, I know those guys are older, but come on. Like, we're trying to win fantasy football. And I'm sorry, the theory of 25-year-old T. Higgins is not doing it for me. I don't think the value is really that much worth holding. He's been in the league now. This will be his 5th year, I believe. So no, this is his 6th year. No, it's his 5th year. Yeah, you came in the league in 2020. So, like, man. I don't know. He could be headed towards a situation, like a new situation where he's the alpha. But I don't think he's ever going to be the alpha. I just think he's a really good wide receiver, too. And if you were to paint a picture of what's the best team to be a really good wide receiver, too, for, it's pretty sick playing next to Jamar Chase and with Joe Burrow as your quarterback, right?
Oh, like,
what, maybe he gets he goes to Buffalo and maybe he goes to the Chiefs or something. And it's like, fuck, okay, I'm getting burned here, right? Like, that's pretty sweet for T. Higgins. He's good enough to feast in those situations. But like,
Yeah.
what are the better situations than that? Like the Bengals are pretty damn fantastic for him. So I don't know, man. I
Yeah.
don't think it's that good that he's gonna leave. And I just I don't know.
Yeah. I think to your point, like people are just anticipating that like we're gonna get like this like massive leap with him potentially being the one in an offense where yeah, I just don't know if like his skill set suggests that that's what he is. I'd be plenty fine getting rid of T. Higgins has burned me multiple times. In
Who
like
hasn't he
every
burned?
format.
Who
It's just
hasn't he
like
burned, man?
he just like always sitting with like, like very minor injuries. He'll go donuts out of nowhere and then like we get like the bonkers game where he puts up, 132 touchdowns. You're like, that was awesome. Like, can we get like some sort of consistency here? And it's just like it's a very like volatile experience. It's just like
Yes.
a stock that I no longer want to hold. I think I'd rather just go get something a little safer. Maybe go get something a little newer. So no, I'm plenty fine with getting rid of T Higgins. It's not something that I have much appetite for anymore. It's just kind of it just feels like it's been like the same old for 4 straight years now.
All right, those are the four: Jayden Reed, Kyle Pitts, Stefon Diggs, T Higgins. That was fun. It was fun to hate on T Higgins. It's always a good time.
You love doing that. I'm
Not the
surprised you didn't
person.
even.
Not the person. I'm sure he's a good dude, but like,
Oh, good guy. Yeah, I
just
don't even
the
think we got
player.
a Zach Taylor ran there, so that was pretty fun. We escaped that one.
Zach earned my respect last year with Jake Browning. Honestly, he kind of did a pretty good job, all things
Got to give his
considered.
flowers.
Yeah, I gotta give him his flowers, and he did coach him to the Super Bowl. It's hard to hate on Zach, but yeah,
He's a good
they're
coach.
God, I'm going back. I'm reliving it. Oh God. Listeners, basically, I had a team that scored the most points out of any team in this league. They do a payout for most points scored. I got the payout, but I did not make the playoffs because the T Higgins sitting debacle, where he came out in warmups and said he was going to play, and then Zach just pulled him. So I had a 0 in my lineup. And he did this multiple times. I had multiple zeros from T Higgins that cost me in multiple weeks, where if he had just scored 5 points, probably win the ship that year in that league. So I'm wow, I'm still salt. Okay, we're gonna end it at that because I need to go call my therapist before things fall off the rails here. Aidan, thank you for joining us always to talk Dynasty. We appreciate it. We're gonna talk through some buys, so stay tuned if you're still listening. And until next time, everybody.